Hello, Canada.
Well, let's get started.
That was a little clip from when Belton was on the stand at the emergency order hearings inquiry. Tonight I want to go over, well, there's some Chrystia here, and then the latest Trudeau scandal, and then there's a little Pollievre. So we'll go with this Chrystia. Off the top here was November 9th. This is a CPAC recording, which is curious, is that you can see on the right there in my queue was when I originally watched this clip. It was an hour and 7 minutes. They clipped it down to 40 minutes, and when I saved it there, I found it bizarre that they wasted these people's time. She's got about 12 people standing behind her that were standing there waiting for her to show up for over just about a half an hour. So 27 minutes of these people just standing there waiting for her graciousness to come and start this performance. So I thought that was disgusting. Anyway, then she goes. So then there's this fellow from the Sun, Calgary Sun, and he asks her a question. It is a follow up question, a quick follow up question that takes him 3 minutes to spew out. Anyway, what he's talking about is pushing at Danielle Smith being elected, and that she ran on her base was to push back against the federal government and to not be as weenie as Kenny was, I guess, and demanding some better deals for Alberta. And Chrystia here has a really hard time answering this question. She hems and haws and searches her brain for an answer rather than, I'm sure what she just wants to say is, we will crush you. Don't even think about it. You're not going to get anything that you want. We are in control. We are the tyrants. You just bow in line and keep producing oil, and we'll tell you how much oil you can produce. So here's that.
How do you react to all that? That we now have a premier who is going to be more assertive, dare I say, combative with Ottawa than even her predecessor?
Rick, if I may, that's a really good question. And like all good journalists, you've anticipated my answer. Look, I really, truly, and sincerely love Alberta. I really do. And I really, truly, and sincerely believe in the people of Alberta. And I really believe in what is special about this amazing province. I
Keep searching.
therefore really believe that my job, the federal government's job, is to do everything we can to roll up our sleeves and to work with the people of Alberta. I'm here today, Gil said we did have a great conversation, to work with Alberta union leaders. This afternoon, I'm going to have a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce to work with Alberta businesses, to work with Albertan political leaders, Alberta's elected political representatives. I have a good working relationship with Travis Taze, and I look forward to continuing to work with him, to work with Alberta MPs, one of whom is here right now. And we as a government are really going to continue to focus on what we can do as a federal government to support the people of Alberta, to support them with the challenges today, and to invest in the future, and to work with everyone in Alberta who wants to work with us.
So there you go. A whole lot of nothing. Doesn't really answer the question and has a hell of a time even attempting to answer the question. That was a really major pause with a whole bunch of adjectives about how she very, very much likes Alberta. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So then there's Trudeau's latest scandal. Not only did we have CCP police stations in certain cities, especially Toronto. We still haven't found out all the details about that. Then there's 11 members of Parliament. Whether they were all elected, we don't know. 11 people were supplied with hundreds of thousands of dollars from the CCP in their election campaigns. Yet they promised that our election integrity was not breached. So this is from the 15th in the House question period.
The government has an opportunity to answer a question that I asked twice yesterday. This is a serious matter in the public interest that requires an answer. Who are the 11 election candidates who received hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through the Beijing's consulate in Toronto in the 2019 election?
Here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to remind the honourable members what the motivation of foreign interference is. It's not to advance any partisan interest. It's to sow chaos, and it is to destroy our democracy as we know it. Our government will never tolerate it. The RCMP and our intelligence agencies are investigating, and Canadians expect us to do the work that is required and take the action, which is what we are doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
The government's right, Mr. Speaker. This isn't a partisan issue. Both Liberal and Conservative candidates are implicated in receiving these illegal funds. But we need answers, public answers in this House, so investigations can be launched by parties on both sides of this aisle, by Elections Canada, by other relevant authorities. So who are the 11 election candidates who received these illegal monies funneled by Beijing through its Toronto consulate in the 2019 election campaign?
The Honourable Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we're very appreciative of the focus of the Conservative Party on foreign interference in Canadian elections because it's something that we've been concerned about for a long time. The Conservatives have recently decided that this is an important issue, but Mr. Speaker, good news. Our government set up a critical incident election protocol chaired by the Clerk of the Privy Council with the help of Canada's security and intelligence agencies to monitor exactly the kind of situation that my friend has addressed. It worked very well, and there was no change in the outcome of the election, Mr. Speaker.
L'Honorable. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable.
Création d'un réseau.
The creation of an underground network of candidates in 2019, infiltration of agents' offices, agents into MPs' offices, pressure tactics on politicians, a campaign to punish Canadian politicians. It's not a James Bond movie, it's real life. The last two Canadian elections were allegedly targeted by the Chinese Communist regime. The Prime Minister knew about it. The Prime Minister did nothing. Why? What does the Prime Minister know, and why is he trying to hide it from Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
As I said previously, we will never tolerate foreign interference. The whole purpose of foreign interference is to destroy democracy as we know it. The agencies responsible, the RCMP and the intelligence agencies, are investigating. We are taking action. We always will stand up for our democracy. We will never take it for granted. And we know that foreign interference is aimed at destroying that democracy.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. We know that the Chinese Communist regime has interfered in the 2021 election, and the Liberals didn't do anything, despite the revelations which show that this regime was also massively interfering in the 2019 election. Nobody's been charged or sentenced for this, for interfering in these two elections. Guy Saint-Jacques, Canada's former ambassador to China, has said that the Conservatives, several Conservative candidates lost their elections because of the Chinese Secret Services. Mr. Speaker, I'm just asking for one thing. Is there an MP in the Liberal benches who is one of the 11 candidates who received money from the Chinese Communist Party? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague for this important question. Mr. Speaker, when it's a question of national security, it affects all parliamentarians. It's not a political question, it's a question of national interest, Mr. Speaker. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, this government has taken restrictive measures to protect science and research in Canada. And more recently, Mr. Speaker, we blocked 3 transactions to protect our critical minerals in this country, Mr. Speaker. We take national security very seriously, like all parliamentarians should.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
First Nations communities bear the brunt of the...
Okay, so they still didn't answer the question. They're not being transparent about who actually collected this. Destroying our democracy. That's just the go-to language these days. Destroying our democracy. Well, you knew about it from... How did they not know about this from 2019? Supposedly, Trudeau was only briefed about this by CSIS in January of this year. When I say only January of this year. It's November. He's had 11 months to figure this out and come clean, but no, he didn't. And so, because this has come out in the media, then now he's in trouble with Xi Jinping because this has come out in the media. So he's at this other meeting here, G20 or meeting, and he was not appointed a meeting with Xi Jinping. So he tries to get a sidebar with him in this hall, and it doesn't really go that well for him. So hang on a second. Okay, so then there's this, and it's suspicious because this cameraman is there, right? And so there's no avoiding it. These two can see that they're on camera, and other people have thought that this was somewhat staged by Trudeau, that it's probably a Canadian cameraman, and that this is staged for him to be showing that he is confronting Xi Jinping. But, so his interpreter's head is right in the forefront there. And Trudeau doesn't even wait for the translation before he starts talking over the translator. And take note of Xi Jinping's body language. He's not having it. He's not wanting to deal with Trudeau. And he's pissed that it was leaked. That's his main thing. That whatever happened in these elections, that now the public knows about it. That's his main concern. So here we go.
Everything we discuss is leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was
如果
conducted.
有诚心，咱们就以互相尊重的态度来进行很好的沟通。
If there is
否则这个结果就不好说了。
if
In
there is
Canada, we
sincerity
believe
on
in
your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have
也可以建设。
创造条件，创造条件。
Let's create the conditions first.
好，好。我觉得。
Yeah, so they cut this clip off. In other clips I've seen, Trudeau ends up wandering off and there's no one else to talk to, and he kind of then just disappears behind that screen over there. Like, no one else is lined up to talk to him. Oh, man. Yeah, it's... the best thing I can say is it's pathetic. And Xi Jinping just doesn't want to deal with him at all. He's looking away. He's trying to get away. He was not granted a sit down with him, but I believe Biden was. So all the kissing up that Trudeau has done to China has not been for good. It's not paying off. That's for sure. Okay, so that G20 meeting, or the recorded date of that video was the 16th. So now we're at the 18th. Of course, these things, if you watch Question Period, the same things come up over and over and over again. But anyway, so here they are. They're still talking about it. So but this is interesting.
Madam Speaker, when the Prime Minister was briefed by CSIS that at least 11 candidates in the 2019 election illegally received hundreds of thousands of dollars from Beijing, violating multiple sections of the Canada Elections Act, the Prime Minister had a choice. He could report this illegal activity to Elections Canada so that they could investigate, or he could cover it up. What choice did the Prime Minister make?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as I've said in this House previously, Canada's fair and free elections process was never, ever compromised. It's not just me saying that, Madam Speaker. This was determined by an independent panel of national security experts. Let's remember the only ones that benefit from foreign interference are enemies of democracy. I'm disappointed that the opposition for 5 days now has continued to amplify the foreign interference messaging in this House. We should be standing together to stand up to this attack on our democracy, Madam Speaker.
We should be shutting up about this because it's offending Xi Jinping. The enemies of democracy are the people that she's not coming clean with and admitting who they are, who received the money. They must be able to know this by now. You'd think.
Madam Speaker, after that non-answer for the third time to my straightforward question, the only conclusion that can be reasonably drawn is that the Prime Minister made no report to Elections Canada. The Prime Minister professes to be concerned about Beijing's interference in our elections, but when he had an opportunity to do something about it, to report the illegal activity to Elections Canada, he instead chose to cover it up. Why? What is the Prime Minister hiding?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, foreign interference is a threat to the fabric of our democracy. We will continue to invest in our intelligence agencies, in CSIS, to ensure that they have the resources they need to take action and ensure that they are protecting the interests of Canadians. But, Madam Speaker, all members of this House should be standing side by side and standing up against foreign interference and not implying things that were not said by the answers that are given. This is a problem for every member of this House. It's a problem for every Canadian. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, it is a stain on our democracy, and every day that these Liberals refuse to be transparent about it, that stain continues to linger. The government knew that there were 11 candidates who received illegal foreign funds in the 2019 election. Now, the Liberals have repeatedly said that this is a threat to our democracy. We agree, but they refuse to give us the evidence. If the Liberals won't reveal the names to Parliament, will they at least confirm when and if the Prime Minister shared this information with the Commissioner for Elections Canada?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to just take a breath here and remember what is motivating foreign interference. Foreign interference is motivated by a desire to destroy the fabric of our democracy here in Canada. We are taking action by introducing legislation on cybersecurity. I hope that the honourable member who serves on the Public Safety Committee will assist our government in getting that legislation passed. We will always take democracy and protect Canadians seriously and take every action, including legislative action, to make sure that happens.
L'honorable député de Beauce.
The honourable member for Beauce. Thank you, Madam Speaker. In January, the Prime Minister was informed that 11 candidates had received illegal money from foreign actors, potentially influencing our elections. The government is refusing to release details of the campaigns involved and what they're going to do about it. It's simple, Madam Speaker. Did the Prime Minister report these allegations to the Commissioner of Elections, and if so, when? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
And this is the fourth question today. 5 days of questions on foreign interference, and the opposition seems not to recognize who is being attacked in these foreign interference. It's not this side of the House. It's not that side of the House. It's every single member in this House. It is meant to sow chaos. It is meant to destroy our democracy. We need to be standing together, Madam Speaker. I invite them to support cybersecurity legislation. I invite them to support the actions that other ministers have taken when it comes to mining and other actions our government is.
The honourable member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canada's graduate students and postdoctoral fellows are living in poverty.
Okay, so I don't know what the cybersecurity thing is about, whether that's that the Chinese government hacked into the, I don't know, to people's campaigns and deposited money into them. Like, I'm not sure how that relates. Cybersecurity and receiving donations from the CCP. I'm not sure. So what is she's suggesting that the CCP hacked into people's campaigns and deposited money in them, I guess. I don't know what else to think of that. So anyway, that keeps going on. But she just wants everybody to shut up about it because Xi Jinping doesn't like it being in the news. So let's just keep it out there and going in the news. Okay, so then there's Pierre here. This is from a few days ago too. But I kind of liked his answer to the immigration issue. Rather than having a block number of 500,000 people, that we don't have housing for 500,000 people already, that we're going to add another 500,000 people, and where are they going to be housed? He talked about earlier about the mortgages and what's going on, and he's saying that with the cash influx that the government created during the pandemic, that there's a statistic that investors doubled their mortgages, like as in took out mortgages on another property. So if they owned one property, they bought another property because the mortgage rates were low and there was this influx of cash, and I don't know whether that's CERB or who knows how that works. But anyway, he says he's got this statistic. So now that the interest rates are higher, people are going to be drawing back from that, and people that are actually living in their houses that they have mortgages on might be hitting a wall with increased mortgage rates. And he says he doesn't want to speculate yet on how that will be handled in the end. But anyway, so he has this to say anyway about the immigration rate and how it should be handled. And he's basically more data-based rather than a block number.
Look, I think the immigration level should be determined by both demand in Canada for immigrants and demand by immigrants to come here. So, for example, I think we should have an employer-driven economic immigration program whereby employers who have advertised jobs and can't find locals to take them can quickly sponsor people on work permits to come here, who then can quickly become permanent residents and citizens. By employers who have, so for example, I think we should have an employer-driven economic immigration.
These types of pie targets.
Sorry about
Look,
that.
I think the immigration level should be determined by both demand in Canada for immigrants and demand by immigrants to come here. So, for example, I think we should have an employer-driven economic immigration program whereby employers who have advertised jobs and can't find locals to take them can quickly sponsor people on work permits to come here, who then can quickly become permanent residents and citizens. And that should really determine our economic immigration. Central planning doesn't work in the economy, it doesn't work in immigration either. In the 90s, when the Liberals tried to centrally plan which kinds of skill sets we would bring in through immigration, they ended up bringing in a lot of very educated people, but whose skills were not in high demand in the market economy. And that's why a lot of very intelligent people, very well-educated people, ended up being underemployed in Canada at the time. What we should do is let the employers who are in desperate need of the workforce determine who they need and make it quick and easy for them to bring law-abiding, hard-working, skilled workers to our country. Then on refugees, the second stream, we should allow private sponsorship by charities, nonprofits, community groups to determine how many refugees we bring, because we know that private sponsorship is the most successful form of refugee resettlement. It ensures that the immigrant has a support network to get them language training, an apartment, a resume written, schooling for their kids. And so let's allow private sponsorship to drive numbers in that area. And then family reunification should be driven largely by the families that are here that are able to support bringing loved ones here. My emphasis would be bringing young spouses. So I meet countless young people who are 30 years old, have a spouse in India or China who's actually skilled and could be working in our economy, but the two are separated. And we need to speed up spousal reunification. So I'm not trying to dodge your answer about numbers. I just think that we need the system should be based less on arbitrary numerical targets and more on the demands of the Canadian economy, Canadian charities, Canadian families, and the immigrants who want to come here.
Mm-hmm. Shifting gears a little bit to taxes, you want to cut income and payroll taxes because you say they can hurt workers and they can punish productivity.
Yeah.
But preferential tax treatment for certain non-productive assets like housing can have the same effect. Would you ever consider shifting the tax burden to certain assets in order to offer workers an even greater tax cut?
I don't intend to raise taxes on anybody. And I think that, I believe that primary residences should be exempt from capital gains tax. I think Trudeau would love, if he ever got a majority, he would slap a capital gains tax on primary residences, no questions asked. I would never do that. Rather, I don't think we need to raise this tax in order to cut that tax. I think we need to control the cost of government. We don't have a revenue problem. we have a spending problem in Canada. Spending is 30% higher today than it was in the pre-pandemic year of 2019. Even though supposedly all these pandemic programs are lapsing, why is our government a third more expensive? Well, it's because we have an irresponsible prime minister who can't control himself. And all of those costs are being passed on in higher debt, taxes, and inflation. I would bring in a pay-as-you-go law that requires the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending, so we can cap the cost of government while the economy and the taxpayer catches up. And that's how I would free up dollars for tax relief.
Would you consider an alternative, like matching the principal residence exemption with a significant tax credit for renters?
I'd have to look at that. I'd have to learn more about it. I'm open to ideas that help renters, because.
Oh, okay. Love those captions. There's some slap attacks in there. Slap attacks. Attacks as in roar, rather than I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So that's all I'm gonna do for now. Tell me if I suck, and if you hate my reporting, give me a comment, give me a thumbs down, tell me how I can do better. If you like it, please like it. Give me a sub. Help me out. Okay. Have a good night all, or morning, or wherever you are. Peace out.